Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I am on the marketing team here at Internet Creations. We are about to get started. Yes, your Salesforce community can do that, and I am so excited to introduce to you our speakers for this afternoon, if it's afternoon where you're at. Liz Gibbons, Salesforce Consultant here at Internet Creations, and Howard Yermish, our Director of Customer Success. Take it away.
Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to just make sure we set the stage and make sure everyone knows about the different types of communities that are available on the Salesforce platform. We're going to talk a bit about the flexibility of community templates and what things you can do with it that way, as well as flexibility in terms of managing your communities. We will go through a particular customer case study, and then we'll talk about the particular limitations of community templates and some of Liz's favorite features about community templates. Just so that we have a baseline of understanding, can you go over the three types of communities, Liz?
Absolutely. So the types of communities are customer community, and that's what we're really going to focus on today for customer service, case deflection and cases, those sorts of things. Partner communities are geared towards sales and have a lot of features that are very specific to people who will be selling things. And then the employee community, where you can create basically an intranet for your employees. And a lot of it doesn't have its own template like the customer community and the partner community do, but I've seen a lot of people using the customer service template really well to serve that purpose.
All right, so what makes community templates so great? Why are they so flexible? What kinds of things are so awesome about community templates?
Community templates are really cool. If you've ever, it takes a lot to develop a Visualforce page or a Visualforce community, especially if it's the whole thing. So communities are really awesome because you can create it with clicks and not code. You can have your admins spin it up really quickly. Everything, components are drag and drop, and you can make the page really function the way you want and look the way you want very quickly. You also get the 3 updates a year, like everything else in Salesforce, which is super helpful because then you're not thinking every time a release comes out, oh, what code do we need to update? What do we need to change? You've got it. You can choose to update it with the new release, or you can say, you know what, we want to stay on the spring 17 release forever and not make those updates.
So just to clarify there, you're actually able to say, you know what, our community is good the way it is and not move to subsequent versions?
Correct, yeah.
That's really important to know because you may find that there's some reason not to move, but if you do need to move because you're waiting for some functionality, you've got that. You get all the benefits of the Salesforce platform.
Yeah.
All right, what else?
So communities, like everything in Lightning, is designed mobile first. So no matter what device your users are accessing the community on, it's going to look good and it's going to work well. Another great thing is you might need to be changing what sort of objects they have access to, and it takes seconds to add object pages to the community. And it spins up, you choose the object and click create, and bam, it's done. And then something we're going to dive into a little bit later is the community workspaces and how you manage and moderate the community through those.
All right, that's great. So my next question really gets to this in terms of the versatility of community templates. How versatile are these templates from an overall component or that functionality standpoint?
Instead of telling you about it, how about we jump into a demo and I show you?
A demo sounds like a great idea.
All right. Okay, so for those of you who are coming to this as the first time they're really experiencing communities, I figured I'd show you how to get there first from setup. So we're in setup, and I'm in Lightning, but you can do it the same way in Classic. In the quick find, just start typing communities, and you're going to select all communities. From there, we can see I've got 2 communities set up, 1 customer, 1 partner, and I'm going to jump into the builder since we're talking functionality. So we're going to clear out that pop-up, and what you see here is pretty much the out of the box what you see when you spin up a community. I've got a few things. I've been playing around with Chatter, so I've got a few posts, but this is pretty much the out of the box stuff. you've got your search bar, your nav bar, and then a body here. So if we want to add to it, we go into the components tab over here, and I can just scroll through and see what tabs I want. I've got some knowledge set up, so I'm going to drag my featured topics into the header here, and we've got those set up. I can change if I want a title to display, I can change it from featured topics to something else, my favorite football teams or something. But I don't have the title displayed, so it's good to go. I've got some nice images there. We can add maybe to the sidebar, we want to show all of the cases that a user has open. So I can pull in a record list, drop it here, and then I'm just picking out the name of why can't I see cases?
It's not happily scrolling for you.
It's not happily scrolling. That's okay. It happens sometimes. We'll use opportunities. So if someone's, got some opportunities open, we can choose just my opportunities, and I can make it just a quick, 10 records, and change the layout to compact. So we can see, close out that list, and you can see just the records that you have open.
Great. It really looks like now, just if you want to customize that layout, you're just dragging and dropping, adding different components. I know we're going to talk about some audience targeting later. So one of the things that I want to just be very mindful of, and we have a question that came in, and I think this is a good one. Do you need a community license in order to create communities?
Yes, you do need to have community licenses set up. I know I think for the employee community, you wouldn't need specific licenses. There are specific licenses. Maybe if you have employees that don't use Salesforce, but you still want them to have access to the intranet, there are licenses that you would buy for that.
And I think that, to clarify, that's specifically for people to interact on these communities. If you just wanted like a public facing knowledge base, you don't need community licensing for that. But we're talking about how to make a community that's all about the people that show up and not just, hey, here's some content.
Exactly, yeah.
Got it. So moving right along, we're seeing a little bit in terms of the layouts, but what kinds of things does a platform facilitate for community management? Like, can you show some of the dashboards and reports and things like that to monitor the health of the community?
Absolutely. So we're currently in the builder, and we can jump through here into the community workspaces. And there are 7 workspaces that you can do. We were just in builder. One of my favorites is moderation. So we can jump in here and we can see, so these are just some standard reports that Salesforce provides. Lets you know like if messages have been flagged or if there's anything that you need to review. If we jump back over to moderate, once it loads.
All right, let's give it a little refresh.
Yeah.
Boom.
There we go. Okay, jump over to moderate. We can, sorry, I wanted to go to rules. So that would give us just a list of the moderation. But if we go into the rules, we can see what we can set up and how we can keep tabs on our community. So one of the most popular rules is making sure that your community users can't swear. You don't want people using bad language or offensive language. So you can just outright block those.
Okay.
It's really easy to do that. You can also
we won't open up that rule now.
We're not going to open that.
That's not a good one to show on a webinar.
And you can also just replace it. Maybe you want those keywords to be available, but just asterisk them out, and you don't need to worry. You don't need to worry about it because it's covered.
Would you do that if, like, let's say you didn't want people to feel like their post was blocked. You just wanted to say, hey, with that word, we're gonna give it asterisks so that the person knows, oh, you should not use foul language.
Right. Yeah, you can do that. You can also, with the blocking action, you can say like, please don't use these words. Like, this word is the one that's blocked.
So you could let them put in their own fun characters to get around. Got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you can also flag posts because, just because they're not using bad language doesn't mean they're not, being abusive or in some way not rising to the standards you've set in the community. So you want your users to be able to be empowered and say, hey, this is inappropriate. I don't think it should be here.
Got it.
And then you can review it and say, you know what, it's actually not that bad. Like, we'll allow it. Or, maybe we need to reach out to this person.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit about, like one of the rules here is the first post or comment made by a new member that it's getting reviewed. Can you talk a little bit about what goes behind that in terms of sort of some of the member criteria?
Sure. So the two different ways you create rules is through member criteria and content criteria. We just talked about content criteria with the banned words, but member criteria you would use to set, say you want, as soon as a new member makes their first post, you want to review it, you want to like it, really encourage them to get involved with the community. And you can do that and say, either it could be the day they join, it could be 6 months or a year, and you're going to get that little notification and then get them more involved.
So it sounds to me like one of the great things that you get here from just the moderation rules is this isn't about trying to knock content down. It's also trying to lift up community members using the same rule set. That's great.
Yeah. And one of the great things about the review function is you can also, it's not just criteria like that. You can create criteria where, someone says, and this goes to the case study we'll be talking about later, someone mentions one of your competitors. You might want to know what context that they're mentioning them, whether it's, I just changed from, competitor X to this company and I love it, or I'm considering leaving for competitor X, and you can find out, and then you can target those people and say, like, how can we help you? How do we maintain your business? How do we improve this relationship?
So it sounds like what you could do is you could have particular keywords that might be competitors' names or competitor products and have that marked for review. So you're not necessarily flagging the content saying, hey, this isn't necessarily good, but just saying we want to take a look at it and follow up with the person.
Exactly. And it's not going to mark their comment in any way. So you don't have to worry about them being like, why is my comment under review? I'm concerned or upset.
Got it. Is that something where the flagged would mark it for under review?
Yeah.
So that's a really important distinction to point out in this, is that as a moderator and managing the community, you have a difference between I'm flagging something you did versus I need to review what you did.
Exactly.
So that's great for how the community members feel and engage and things like that. Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about when you are nurturing members? Can you talk a little bit about adding members and managing the reputation?
Sure.
Those two things?
Yeah. So for that, we're going to jump into the administration tab or workspace. And so we've got a bunch of different things over on the side here. You can see this settings is to activate or deactivate your community. Generally speaking, just don't touch it. It's not, you'll be very upset if you accidentally hit deactivate.
So will lots of people who are your community members.
Exactly. So it's really easy to add members. It's basically, you're selecting profiles and adding them. You can select internal and portal profiles. The portal profiles, portal is Salesforce's older language for community. It used to be customer portals. Now they're using the community term.
Got it. But they didn't update the profile.
Yeah, I don't know.
That. Awesome. Something to know.
Yeah.
The more you know banner has just flashed across the screen.
Yeah, something to definitely be aware of. So you just add and remove profiles that way. You can also add people through permission sets.
Okay.
So maybe you have a customer service rep who specifically is managing or moderating your community, but not every customer service rep needs to be in the community.
Got it.
Then you could give them a permission set that says, you've got these permissions to moderate the community, and that way they're added, and you're not giving too many people power and access. You just have the specific people using it.
Great. So can you talk a little bit about the different reputation levels and reputation points? They're two different things that can be used to really encourage engagement.
Yeah, so reputation is really great. To enable it, it's super easy. Just you're checking a box on the community management, on preferences under community management. And then you have these two tabs over here for reputation level and reputation points. So the different ways that users interact with the community, they gain points. So let's go there first, actually. So you can see these are the out-of-the-box Salesforce points, receiving a like for 5 points, writing a post for 1. I might say, you know what? You're writing the post, that's way more effort than getting a like.
So you might give 10 points.
You
for
might
that.
give 10 points for that. And so you can change that and adjust it so it's more customized to how you want to encourage your users to participate. And then you have levels that they can go through. I haven't named any of the levels in this community, but if you're familiar with Trailhead, you know, this is probably the technology they're using behind that as well. And again, you can say how many points you want to dole out. And as you see here, like 0 to 50 and then 51 to 150, if you change this point level will change too. It's not,
You're not having
locked
to update
in.
both sets of fields.
Right.
I remember that from back in the day when you had to do all these crazy updates and make things that flagged errors and lots of fun.
Yeah.
So, but this would be the place where you would say things like number one's your noob, you know, new users, active, like you can go crazy. And what's also nice is you can have those early levels be ones that are pretty easy to get up in the ranks to really encourage it, where your top levels might be like, we're looking for the Salesforce equivalent of MVPs because they're so active in the community and they get special recognition and badges and things like that.
Exactly.
Got it. So that's great. Can we switch gears a little bit? You know, we've looked a little bit about the admin and building the pages. Can we talk about the flexibility of community templates from a visual standpoint? Just how flexible are they?
Absolutely. So it's easy to switch to, you know, obviously the dragging and dropping and changing the visual look that way. You can also add branding, but as you can see on the left-hand side of this page, that looks a lot like what we just did, and that's from Salesforce Marketing. So
that's their default.
It's their default.
Their standard template.
Yeah, standard out-of-the-box customer service template.
We're not going to pronounce it because everyone that I've heard pronounces it differently.
Yes.
It's the standard customer service template.
And luckily, they've changed the name in this most recent release, so it is just the customer service template now.
Oh, so there's no
more fun Hawaiian
no
words.
more fun Nepali, depends on who you ask.
Yeah. And then on the right here, you can see the case study that we're going to talk about. And this is, you can see a lot of similar features. You can see the bar, but it's above the search instead. The search has rounded edges. The boxes are here, but they're longer. This is using CSS more customized to fit their look and feel. They did have fairly specific wants and needs for their community. And so you can make a lot of changes and with the, you know, the dragging and dropping, but if you really want to customize, you are going to need to get into the CSS.
Got it. So before we dive into this customer story, there's a question. First question is, I have multiple brands that I want to support. Do I need to have multiple communities to show multiple brands, or can I have everything in one community?
You can absolutely have everything in one community. It would depend on how you want to organize it, but we're going to talk audience targeting later.
Great.
So maybe if you have, you know, one, you know, a customer is specific to a brand, you can use that, and we'll definitely get into that.
Got it. And the other question, I think this also relates to audience targeting, is can I choose what a user sees, or excuse me, can I choose what users see, what information on a member by member basis? So it sounds like in that question, like Stephanie and I are both logging into this community. I'm from one company, she's from another, or I own one product and she owns a different product. Can I customize the content that I see and Stephanie sees?
Yes. Yeah, there's definitely, that also sounds like audience targeting that might get into profiles, and you are somewhat limited when it comes to the profiles for communities, but you can make it unique and make sure that everyone's getting the experience they need.
Great. So let's dive into our customer case study.
Right.
Let's talk about that. Can you go over some of the overall project goals and some of the specific technical hurdles that this customer presented?
Sure. So this customer had a Visualforce community, and it just wasn't quite meeting their needs, and they wanted to replace it with a template.
Got it.
So that was one of their goals, was to use the templates. They are a B2B company, but they really wanted a B2C feel. So they'd looked around at different communities, played around with what was out there for other, customer communities, and they decided they really liked Samsung's. So we've got a picture of that here, and you can kind of see some similarities about that, top banner and, selecting, the documentation here versus your product type there. But their needs were more complicated than the out-of-the-box features, whether those were needs specific to their industry or it was a desire of we want the elongated box with the explanatory text on there.
One of the things that I remembered about that project was they were very meticulous about look and feel. They had very specific needs. They wanted, a lot of precision. And initially, when I saw it, I was like, wow, I don't know if these templates are going to hold up. But I think this is, speaks to the strength of the templates in that what we did was we really looked at how do we develop components that go inside the template as opposed to saying we're just going to make it all in Visualforce and lose the functionality of the templates.
Exactly. Yeah. And so this community does have custom code on every single page, but nonetheless, it's a templated community.
Got it. So can you talk a little bit about what you can do in terms of extending the templates, customizing the community templates beyond what we saw in your initial demonstration?
Sure. So, one of the reason the case study worked within the template, why that company was able to still use the templates, was creating components and using components from the App Exchange as well. That we weren't developing pages, we were developing these smaller things that would run on the page, and they could reuse them, and honestly, they could, move them if they decided to have a different community. They could use them in that other community, but they could also, they didn't need to contact us, or they didn't need to have their own developer if they wanted to create a new page or they wanted to reorganize a page. Those components, just like the ones we saw in the demo, were drag and drop and easily changeable.
Got it. And so just to really clarify that, let's say they have some specific initiative and they want to create some very audience-specific pages. They can take everything that was custom built as a component instead of a Visualforce page and say, I'm going to make a whole new layout and basically just use the builder from before and put individual components in, make whatever customizations, because instead of us developing just writing code that's everything's hard-coded, we wrote code that's configurable so that it could support that.
Yeah, and like you saw when we were dragging on that record list and we were able to make those changes, changing it from accounts to opportunities or cases, developers can develop components with that in mind, so that if you have it for one thing, you can put it on a different page, change the configuration of that specific component, and it's going to display differently, but you are using the same code and you're just making everything just a little more reusable than it would if it was just a page.
Got it. And again, one of the things I think about these templates, if they wanted to make some kind of massive global change in, subtle changes in the branding, or they wanted to change the color, they're updating just the CSS as opposed to now going in and customizing everything. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. One of the things that we can dive into here is, can you talk to some of the key limitations that you need to know about communicate with the community templates?
Absolutely. So I kind of pulled out the things that I kind of made me stop and go, that's odd. Because we all know Salesforce has limitations, and I could right?
Limitations? Crazy.
And I could sit here and list numbers at you, but it wouldn't exactly be an engaging presentation. So one of the interesting things, if you're in Lightning, you probably are familiar with using a lookup field and starting to using the type ahead, and then seeing the little create new at the bottom. And that is not enabled for lookup fields in communities.
Okay, that's a key point to know.
Yeah, so your users are not going to be able to use that. And not quite sure why Salesforce did it that way. I imagine it's because community users just don't have as much power to create records as an internal user would. So unsurprisingly, really, communities are not friendly with Internet Explorer 10 or earlier.
And realistically, who should be friendly with Internet Explorer 10 or earlier?
We're not using Internet Explorer anymore.
No, we are not using, we're using good browsers now.
Good browsers.
Must endorse.
Yes. And I know we've talked a lot about the customer service template, but just to be aware, this is a key limitation that I've had conversations with clients about, that the partner community does not currently support knowledge.
Okay.
I've heard it's on the roadmap, but I don't know where. So it's just something to know. You can create a partner community in the customer service template, and it's going to be fine, and you're going to have knowledge. But there are certain features that are only available in the partner community. So if you gotta weigh those decisions before you decide.
And it may be that if you're working with partners that need to support their customers, or you need to support them in their efforts, that you just have to make decisions in terms of what their community experience is going to be. Or maybe they have an account in the general customer community so that they can access knowledge that way, and they do have special tools in a partner community.
Yeah, and you can give community members access to more than one community. So that's a good way to do it.
Got it.
So list views, this is important. You can't restrict publicly available list views from viewers in the community.
Okay, so what that sounds like to me is the list view that I have, let's say in the community you had a list of, you wanted to show the customer their cases. So if I had a list view that I made publicly available before we had a community, and it was Howard's cases that he's ignoring, right? That would show up in the community.
Yes, it would.
So I'm going to need to lock that down and make it only viewable to me, correct?
Yep.
So that's something where it isn't just how to build a community, it's how to train your existing users. Hey, when you make your own list views, don't make them public, because the community members will see it unwittingly.
Yes. And I mean, for the Howard's ignoring cases, you also don't want your boss seeing that. So private list view is pretty good.
Practices there. For the record, I don't have a list view that says Howard's ignored cases, but just to use that as an example.
Yes. And then, of course, Salesforce, this is another sort of general Salesforce thing, but iframes. Salesforce doesn't like it if you iframe their pages into other pages. So if you have an existing website and you're like, well, let's just iframe our community in, it's not going to work. Salesforce is trying to protect you. It's a security issue. They don't want clickjacking to happen through their communities or through their various pages. So you can set up a custom domain so that your community looks like it's existing in your company website, but don't try to iframe it. And then, of course, as I said at the top, you've got Salesforce platform limitations. You can only do X number of criteria in a criteria rule. I think it's 2,000. And then you have to create a new criteria list. And so you have all sorts of those limitations and Salesforce has documented them very well. So if you look up the community documentation, you can find all those limitations there.
Got it.
There are reports. There's a great package that Salesforce has on the App Exchange of reports and dashboards for the community. And there's a report in that is just searches with no results.
Oh,
and then you can build your knowledge in that direction. So you know, like, oh, this is a topic we're not covering. We need to build it. Or this is a topic we're never going to cover. It's fine.
Got it. I'm actually going to, I have the link to that app. I'm going to post that in the chat for those, that community management package. Great. So for those of you listening, you can see in the chat, we just linked that community management package that Salesforce makes for free.
Yes.
So we talked about,
go ahead,
sorry.
To go back to that package for a second, I think the one you posted is the one for organizations with Chatter. If you don't have Chatter in your organization, there's another package out there and it's just the same name, but without Chatter on the end.
Got it. So now we've talked about some of the limitations. Let's switch gears a little bit. And can you talk to us about what your favorite features are of community templates?
Yes. So we didn't really get into registration at all, but you can have users self-register. And it's super easy. You check a box and set up what profile they need, and boom, they can log in and set up everything.
And that would be something where if you were setting up a community where you have a broad base of users who don't necessarily have accounts in Salesforce yet. Is that correct?
Right. Yep.
Got it.
Yeah, and that will create a user and a contact, and those will be linked.
Got it. But
really great.
If you were in a situation where you only wanted your community to be for known users, you would want that disabled. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
But that's it's just a checkbox.
Just a checkbox.
Oh, I hate it when they make things so complicated. All right. So you mentioned here language picker. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So Salesforce has a number of languages that you can enable. I forget how many it is. It's been growing recently. And if you enable languages in your community or in your Salesforce org, then they are automatically enabled for your community.
Okay.
So all you have to do, it's a component, drag language picker onto the page, and then your users have the ability to, if they're in France, switch it to French, or wherever they are, they can change it based on their preferred language.
Got it.
I haven't had the opportunity to use that yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
We are too.
Yeah.
That would be great.
And then audience targeting, which we have talked a little bit about, or sort of previewed a little. So we're going to jump back into the demo org for that.
Great.
So we're going to go back to the builder. Basically, you can set up audiences for your pages.
Okay.
And page variations for those audiences. And so you can create the audience based on the profile and the location. So you can set up, I think it's by IP address. You can say, if your IP address is in Texas, only show them the Cowboys logo because they don't care about the rest of the NFL.
I don't know why they wouldn't care about the Eagles everywhere. Oh, sorry, that's my bias there.
So I've got a couple of page variations set up, and I did this by profile. So you can see this page is visible if they have the customer community login profile.
Got it.
And so we've got, featured tabs. So we can go the topics, we've got discussions, and then the things I've posted. And
so different style, a leaderboard there. That's a nice way to leverage reputation.
Yep,
great.
Absolutely. I don't have any trending articles or topics yet, but we've got those available. And then we can switch to our home 3, which is available to the customer community plus login profiles. And so instead of the tiles of topics, they've just got lists of the top articles, of which there are currently none in this community. But you can see, again, we've got the leaderboard and things over here, and we've just kind of changed what they see here. But you can change the whole page based on that.
Got it. That's great.
And it's really easy to do. So we've got home, so we've got these page variations over here, and then you can see I have them assigned audiences, and creating audiences is super easy here.
New audience.
New audience, yeah.
Again, we just click on it.
Yeah, and you can even make it so that if it's an internal user or an internal profile, you can add all your internal profiles and say they should see something different than the external users.
And you could, even simple things like the comments you post here will show up in the public.
Yeah.
Like a little warning, guidance, things like that. Just simple touches to make managing the community better for your users. That's great. Yeah. All right. So in turn, just sort of moving right along with this, just to wrap things up, and we kind of, the questions that have come in, we've kind of addressed along the way. Mm-hmm. So if there's any other questions that people may have, please make sure to post them in the questions panel. If we don't answer them right away, right now, we will be hanging out after the end of this presentation. So the first thing that I want to, please put all your questions in that panel. The next thing I want to do is I want to highlight another webinar that we have coming up. It's the Accelerating Your Transition to Lightning. This is going to be on July 12th, 2018. And I just posted a link in the chat there for you to register for that. That's something that's coming up. For those of you in Texas that may be Cowboys fans, we are a gold sponsor at Texas Streaming on June 14th and 15th. You can actually see, I will be there myself. And I will be defending our Demo Jam title that George and I won last year when we went. So we're going to go do it again, and we're going to burn things up that way. So hope to see you there. We are going to wrap up, so we're not seeing any additional questions. I just posted a little link in the chat. If you have questions and you need help with moving to communities, we would love to help you, because that's one of the things that we do here. So the link there is some information about what we do for our community cloud customers in terms of those kinds of projects. We would love that opportunity, obviously. But for those of you still hanging out, thank you for your time. We're going to close up shop here and enjoy the rest of your day.